Welcome to another deep dive into American coinage, where history, art, and unexpected value come together in the palm of your hand. Today, we're exploring a coin that might just be sitting in your pocket change right now, but carries with it a legacy of struggle, triumph, and pride. A coin that's both a tribute to a towering historical figure and a hidden gem for collectors. Yes, we're talking about the 2017 Frederick Douglass Quarter, specifically, the version minted in Denver, known to collectors by its small but mighty D mint mark. Now, at first glance, this might seem like just another quarter. After all, it's part of the larger America the Beautiful series, a series of quarters that, since 2010, has been highlighting national parks and historic sites across all 50 states and U.S. territories. But beneath the surface, this quarter holds far more than just 25 cents worth of metal. It holds a story of freedom, intellect, and the indomitable human spirit. And if you're lucky enough to own a high-quality version of this particular coin, it might be worth a lot more than you think, up to $99, in fact. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's rewind. Who was Frederick Douglass, and why was he chosen for this special edition quarter? Born into slavery in 1818 in Maryland, Frederick Douglass would rise to become one of the most powerful voices for abolition in American history. He was a self-taught reader, writer, and speaker, and he didn't just speak about freedom, he lived it. Escaping slavery at the age of 20, Douglass would go on to write several autobiographies, deliver countless speeches, and meet with presidents, all in the service of a simple but radical idea, that every human being deserves freedom and dignity. In a world where we often Leonize heroes through statues and battle scenes, this quiet moment of scholarship is profoundly powerful. It reminds us that the pen, and the mind behind it, is often mightier than the sword. The D mint mark may seem like a small detail, but to collectors, it's everything. Coins from different mints often have different production numbers, different levels of quality, and, as a result, different values. The Denver Mint is known for producing high-quality coins, but even so, certain batches come out with small variations, tiny imperfections or features that, over time, make them rarities. So, how many of these quarters were actually minted in Denver? Official records show that just over 289 million Frederick Douglass quarters were struck at the Denver Mint in 2017. Now, that might not sound rare at all, and at face value, it isn't. But here's where things get interesting. Out of those 289 million, only a small fraction were kept in pristine, uncirculated condition. And an even smaller number were submitted for grading by professional services like PCGS or NGC. Among those, only a handful received the coveted high grades, MS-67 or above, that really make a coin stand out to collectors. You see, in the world of coin collecting, condition is king. Even a tiny scratch, a worn edge, or a dull finish can reduce a coin's grade and, therefore, its value. So when a coin like the 2017 D Frederick Douglass Quarter turns up in near-perfect mint state, collectors take notice. Now let's talk design again for a moment. The obverse of the quarter, that's the heads side, carries the familiar image of George Washington, first seen on the quarter in 1932. This version was slightly updated for the America the Beautiful series, but it's still unmistakably Washington. Around his portrait, the inscriptions read, "United States of America, Liberty, in God we trust," and, of course, the denomination, $quarter. Just beneath the inscription, "In God we trust," you'll find the mint mark. If yours has a little D there, it's from the Denver Mint. Now let's shift gears. You're probably wondering, how does a common-looking quarter come to be worth $99? Well, the answer lies in a mix of factors. First, rarity in high grades. Coins graded MS-67 or higher from the Denver Mint are relatively scarce, and collectors are always on the hunt for the best examples. Second, demand. Frederick Douglass is an enduring figure in American history, and anything associated with him, especially something officially minted by the U.S. government, tends to hold appeal. There are also die varieties and errors that can push the value even higher. Some coins from the Denver Mint have been found with double dies, where parts of the design appear doubled due to misalignment during the minting process. Others may have unusual marks or incomplete strikes. These aren't flaws in the traditional sense, they're quirks that make a coin unique. And uniqueness drives value. It's amazing when you think about it. A simple quarter, something most of us overlook, can be a gateway to history, art, and even profit. It can connect us to people like Frederick Douglass, whose ideas shaped the course of our nation. It can introduce us to the world of numismatics, where every coin has a story. And yes, it can even be worth more than a nice dinner out. So next time you get change at the store or dig through a jar of coins at home, take a closer look. That 2017 quarter might not just be spare change. If it's got a D mint mark and a pristine finish, you could be holding a little. It's easy to overlook the small change in our pockets. Quarters come and go, spent on parking meters, vending machines, or maybe just tossed into a change jar at the end of the day. But once in a while, one of those little coins tells a much bigger story. Today, we're diving deep into one of those very coins, a piece of American history that's been hiding in plain sight, the 2000 Maryland State Quarter, bearing the Roosevelt Mint Mark P, a coin that has quietly built a reputation among collectors not just for its design, but for its rarity, condition, and surprising value. And yes, by the end of this video, we'll talk about that magic number, $97. But before we reveal how this modest coin grew to nearly $100 valuation, let's rewind time, and start from the beginning, not just in the year 2000, but even before that, when the State Quarters program itself was born. In 1999, the United States Mint launched what would become one of the most ambitious and beloved coinage projects in American history, the 50 State Quarters program. The idea was simple, but brilliant. Each of the 50 states would be honored with its own unique quarter, issued in the order that each state joined the Union. This was more than a way to refresh pocket change, it was a chance to educate, to inspire, and to encourage the public, especially younger generations, to start collecting. Let's take a closer look at the design of the Maryland State Quarter. The reverse side, what most people refer to as the tails side, features a bold, elegant depiction of the Maryland State House. That's the oldest state capitol still in continuous legislative use, and it holds the honor of being the only state house to have ever served as the nation's capital. Back in the days of the Continental Congress. In the year 2000, the U.S. Mint struck a massive number of Maryland state quarters, over 1.2 billion across all mints. Of that, roughly 742 million came out of Philadelphia. That's a lot. But here's where it gets interesting, not all quarters are created equal. Some coins emerge from the mint with slight errors. Others are struck in better condition. And a select few, either due to minting quirks, preservation, or other anomalies, end up becoming prized among collectors. The Maryland State Quarter with the Roosevelt-era peak mint mark is one of those coins. Let's unpack that a little more. When people refer to the Roosevelt mint mark, they're often talking informally about quarters struck during the Roosevelt administration, or more accurately, the design period surrounding Roosevelt's coinage influence. But in the case of this quarter, it's more accurate to say that the Roosevelt reference is shorthand used by some collectors for Philadelphia-struck quarters from this transitional period in U.S. minting, around the turn of the millennium. It's a nickname more than a formal term, but it sticks among certain communities. A few Maryland quarters from the year 2000 with the P mint mark have surfaced in MS-66, MS-67, and even MS-68. These are coins that show virtually no wear, perfect striking, and full original mint luster. They're usually found in uncirculated rolls, mint sets, or hoarded by savvy collectors from the day they were released, but condition isn't the only factor. There are also known varieties and errors associated with the Maryland quarter that add to its mystique. Some have double dies, where the design appears slightly double due to a misalignment during striking. Others have off-center strikes or other anomalies. While rare, these errors can skyrocket a coin's value depending on the severity and visibility of the error. As the years passed, the market for state quarters shifted. After the initial flurry of excitement in the early 2000s, casual collectors moved on, but the serious numismatists, the dedicated coin experts, began to hone in on the details. They started identifying which state quarters were more than just commemorative, they were valuable. By now, you might be wondering, how rare is it really? And how valuable can it be? Well, here's the moment we've all been waiting for. As of today, a pristine, uncirculated 2000 Maryland State Quarter with the P mint mark, graded MS-68 by a trusted authority, has been sold and resold in the collector's market for as much as $97. That's right. Nearly $100 for a quarter that might have cost you 25 cents 25 years ago. Of course, not every Maryland quarter is worth that. Most in circulation are only worth face value. But if you're holding one that's been well preserved, with no scratches, full details, and that brilliant luster of a newly struck coin, it could very well be one of the valuable ones. So what should you do if you think you have a 2000 Maryland quarter with the P mint mark? First, give it a close look under bright light. Check for scratches, dings, or signs of wear. If it looks unusually crisp, consider having it appraised or graded professionally. If it has any visible minting errors, doubling, off-center strikes, or odd markings, you may be holding something even rarer. At the end of the day, coins like these remind us that history is everywhere. It jingles in our pockets. It slips through our fingers at gas stations and coffee shops. And sometimes, if we pay close enough attention, we realize that